Our next speaker is our winner from the 2018 Mandorla Award. Mikaela Castledine is an award-winning artist, a published writer with a degree in applied science and an MA in writing and literature. She's been a professional artist for 25 years, working in paper collage and crocheted sculpture. She's received the prestigious Sculpture by the Sea Scholarship at Cottesloe in 2013, the Sculpture Inside Award Sculpture by the Sea, Cottesloe 2016, and was selected as a 2016 finalist in the Distinguished Bankwest Sculpture Prize. She's represented in many public and private collections, both in Australia and internationally. We've invited her here today as the winner of the 2018 prize and the People's Choice Award with her work, God is in the House. We trust that she has many words of wisdom to share with you about her experience. Welcome, Mikaela.
I decided to bring a prop today, and then I forgot that I was going to have to hold on to the microphone. So this might go horribly wrong, in which case you can think of this as the kind of comic relief section of the afternoon. Okay. So I've been asked to come and talk about my experience with the Mandorla Art Prize as an artist, and particularly on the topic of working with a theme. So, imagine your creativity is a bouncy ball. If you leave it sitting on your desk, or you just roll it along the floor, or throw it through the air, nothing much happens. What? Really? It's only when it hits something or someone that all the potential and kinetic energy is released, and it flies off in a new direction. So creativity has to be bounced off things in order to work. Like resistance training, working against something is how you make your creativity strong. Can catch it. It's common to think of a theme in an art award as a restrictive thing, something that stifles your creativity, but it's not. I presume you've all heard someone tell you to think outside the box. People who say this don't really understand creativity, because artists can think inside the box just as creatively as they can outside, because it's not about inside or outside. It's about the box and using it to bounce your creativity off, and this is where I have to put that down, because actually I didn't bring this sculpture, I brought the box so that I could bounce my balls in it. But see, I've got, you know, there's your creativity, bounce it around inside the box. This is just to wake you up. Of course, as artists, you're always bouncing your creativity off stuff, things that interest you, things that happen to you, investigations that occur to you. But a theme is a kind of a wild card, introduced by someone else. It's not a restriction, it's an opportunity to exercise your creativity in new and unexpected directions. Having said that, last year's Mandorla theme just so happened to be a box that fitted beautifully inside the box I was already bouncing around in. So instead of taking me somewhere completely new, it took me deeper in the direction I really wanted to go, which felt immensely satisfying. I had begun an investigation into religious architecture back in 2014 when I travelled to Burma, which is where my mother was born. I stood out the front of the Catholic church where she was baptised, and I looked straight up the road to the enormous golden dome of the Shwedagon Pagoda. I was struck by how much more similar they were than different. I began making stupas and started to think about spires and domes and why those shapes appeal to us, shapes like this one here. I began to think that instead of building those shapes to entice people in, we were building them to entice God in. That these shapes were the best things we could think of to make, and that therefore God would find them irresistible places to live, or at least to visit. Then, as it is often the way with coincidence, I started to see these shapes everywhere. The collection of toiletries on my bathroom shelf, the glassware in my pantry. When I read the theme of the 2018 Mandorla Award, all my vague and floating ideas on this topic suddenly had a gravity and momentum. I decided to make a tiny domestic-sized heaven and see if I could entice God into that. I sat in this very artist talk in 2017 next to Steve and next to Desmond Ma and Gordon Mitchell, and they will confirm that I was bouncing. I was so excited that I said to Christy, I'm sorry, but I need to go home now and start making this work. I seriously couldn't sit still on my chair. Now, I'm not saying that this is how it should happen. It had never happened to me before like that, and it may never happen again, when inspiration hits you like an adrenaline shock to your heart, but you know then that you're onto something. I believe that this energy manifested itself in the work that I made. It certainly sustained me through the 6 months of making and planning. I loved every moment of it, and I was so happy that others came to feel the same way about the work as I did. The thing about awards with themes is that you will be judged not just on the quality of your work, but your ability to articulate the theme. I know that sometimes inspiration doesn't come like an adrenaline hit. It can be a series of small, wandering steps that are hard to trace back. Because I'm a poet as well as an artist, I'm used to interrogating my thoughts and feelings and emotions, but I know not everyone is practiced in doing that. But as an artist, can I suggest you try? I know you just want to get on and make the work and worry about what it means later, but if you actually document your thought processes at the beginning, then you'll find writing the artist statement so much easier and also more authentic at the end. I have a whole theory about art that revolves around intention, that art is art because the artist intends it to be art. So I think that if you think about the theme and your intention is to make work inspired by the theme, then ipso facto, that should show in the work. If you take a piece of your work and try to shoehorn it into the theme and rewrite your artist statement to fit, then I think that will also show. Beyond theme, there are a couple of other things I want to mention that I think are useful reminders for artists. I'm sorry if they're also going to be mentioned by other speakers, but they probably can bear repeating. Firstly, the initial round that you have to make it through is purely based on photos. If you don't take a good photo of your work, it won't matter how good it is, it won't get in. My cathedral was made up of 60 individual pieces of glass and mirror. I take pretty good photos of my work, but this piece was really hard to photograph, so I took it to a professional. This meant dismantling the entire thing, carefully packing it all up, driving to the photographer's studio, setting it all up, and then the reverse, taking it home again. It was really a lot of work, but I needed to get a really good photo to show the selectors what the work was like. Mostly, you won't have to do quite as much work as that, but just please make sure that you take a good photograph. If the photos are out of focus or they don't capture the work, then you're doing yourself a disservice and making it very hard for the selectors to choose your piece. Secondly, stick to the rules. Read the terms and conditions. If it says, put D-rings on the back, then put D-rings on the back. If it says the piece can't be bigger than 2 metres, you don't say, oh, I read that, but I felt like making a piece that was 2.5, because I'm an artist. You won't get in. People think that being creative is about breaking the rules, but it's not. As I said, it's vastly more creative to bounce off, find ways to work with them. Annoying the judges from the start is not going to get you very far. The other thing that particularly applied to my piece, but may be of use to mention, is that it occurred to me that the judges might say, well, I like it, but how on earth do we store it or move it or display it? If you haven't seen my piece, it is in the catalogue that's around there, and you'll see it was quite a complex piece. So I spent about a month building storage boxes. So each of the pieces had its own box. I put together a manual with the help of my very handy husband, clearly showing how to install it, how to dismantle it, how to pack it up. all of those things, how to store it safely. I'm not saying this is what won me the prize, but I think making sure that you never give the judges a chance to not choose your work is a good idea. I've done some art prize judging myself, and it can be really, really difficult. And if you're trying to decide between two pieces which are artistically neck and neck, but one of them has a tiny question mark over one tiny issue, then it makes it really much easier to choose the other piece. A lot of people have asked me if I'm going to submit a work for the 2020 exhibition, but at this stage I haven't really decided to. I haven't had that adrenaline shot that's propelling me towards making work to this theme, but you never know. After this event, something in my brain might just start bouncing.
Thank you, Mikaela. That was incredibly helpful. I want to put something in myself, but I'm not allowed to, unfortunately, as a board member.